I made the worst mistake of my life. At the time, I didn't think about the consequences. I was blinded by selfishness and a desire for something I couldn't even define. Luke, my husband, was everything a woman could ask for: kind, loyal, and loving. We had been married for 3 years, and he treated me like I was his whole world. But for some reason, I started feeling trapped, even bored. I convinced myself I needed more excitement, more passion. Luke worked long hours to provide for us, but instead of appreciating his dedication, I mistook his hard work for neglect. I felt lonely, and instead of talking to him about it, I sought validation elsewhere. That validation came in the form of a coworker, someone who flattered me and made me feel things I foolishly thought I was missing. It started innocently: shared lunches, inside jokes, text messages that turned from casual to flirtatious. Before, I knew it. I had crossed a line I could never uncross. When Luke found out, it was as if I had stabbed him in the heart. He didn't yell or scream. He just looked at me with tears in his eyes, his voice barely a whisper as he asked, "Why, Anna? Was I not enough for you?" I had no answer. What could I say? That it was a mistake? That I never meant to hurt him? None of it mattered, because the damage was done. I had betrayed the man who loved me unconditionally, and I could see the light in his eyes fade as he packed his things and left. I tried to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, but he was done. He didn't deserve the pain I had caused, and deep down, I knew it. We divorced shortly after, and I was left alone, consumed by regret. The years that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work, dated casually, but nothing ever felt right. Every man I met was a reminder of what I had lost. Luke's face, his smile, his laugh, they haunted me. I wanted to reach out to him so many times, but I didn't. I told myself I didn't deserve to. He deserved peace, and I had already caused him enough pain. Life went on, but the ache in my chest never disappeared. Then one day, everything changed. It happened on a regular afternoon. I was sitting in a coffee shop, sipping my latte and scrolling through my phone, when I saw him. Luke. He walked in, looking as handsome as ever, but there was something different about him. His posture was more confident, his movements more assured. There was an ease about him that I didn't recognize, but it only made my heart race more. I froze, unsure of what to do. Should I hide behind my menu or leave before he saw me? But before I could act, his eyes locked onto mine. For a brief moment, he looked surprised. Then his expression shifted into something calm, unreadable. Slowly and deliberately, he made his way toward me. "Anna," he said, his voice steady and composed. "Hi, Luke," I replied, my voice trembling. It felt surreal to see him again after all these years. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. I nodded silently, unable to find the words. My heart was pounding as he pulled out the chair and sat down. Up close, I could see the subtle changes in him, the faint lines around his eyes, the maturity in his demeanor. He didn't look angry or hurt, just resolved. "It's been a long time," he said, breaking the silence. "5 years," I whispered, my voice barely audible. I couldn't bring myself to meet his gaze. The weight of unspoken words hung heavily in the air. Finally, I forced myself to ask the question that had been swirling in my mind since the moment I saw him. "How have you been?" He smiled faintly, leaning back in his chair. "Better. It took a while, but I found peace. Life's good now." His words hit me harder than I expected. I had always hoped he would move on and find happiness, but hearing it out loud felt like a dagger to my chest. Still, I knew I had no right to feel that way. "I'm glad," I said, my voice shaky. "You deserve it." Luke studied me for a moment, his piercing gaze making me feel like he could see straight through me. Then he leaned forward, his expression turning serious. "Why did you do it, Anna?" The question I had been dreading for years. I swallowed hard, feeling tears sting my eyes. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice cracking. "I was selfish, insecure. I thought I needed something else, something I didn't have. It's not an excuse, but I was wrong, Luke. I see that now, and I'm so sorry for what I did to you." He nodded slowly, his face impassive. "I've spent years trying to make sense of it," he said. "At first I was angry. I wanted to hate you, but I couldn't. You were my wife, Anna. I loved you, I still—" He stopped himself, shaking his head as if trying to push the thought away. "I loved you more than anything, and you broke me." Tears streamed down my face, and I couldn't hold them back anymore. "I know," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I know I did, and I hate myself for it every single day. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. But I can't." Luke sighed deeply, his expression softening for the first time. "I've forgiven you, Anna," he said. "Not for you, but for me. Holding on to that anger, that pain, it was eating me alive. Forgiving you was the only way I could move on." His words felt like a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. He had forgiven me, but it was clear that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. He had built a new life for himself, one that didn't include me. "I'm glad you found peace," I said, my voice trembling. "I've thought about reaching out so many times, but I didn't want to disrupt your life. I didn't deserve your forgiveness, Luke. I still don't." He smiled faintly, a sad but genuine smile. "You're right. You didn't deserve it. But I gave it anyway. Not for you, but because I needed to let go of the past. And you should too, Anna. Carrying that guilt won't help you." The words stung, but they were true. I had been carrying the weight of my mistakes for so long that I didn't know how to let them go. "Are you happy now?" I asked hesitantly, my voice barely above a whisper. Luke nodded. "I am. It wasn't easy, but I've rebuilt my life. I found someone who loves me, someone I can trust. We're expecting our first child soon." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. He had truly moved on and created a life that I could no longer be a part of. And yet, despite the pain, I was happy for him. He deserved all the happiness in the world. "That's wonderful, Luke," I said, forcing a smile through my tears. "I'm so happy for you." He stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. For a moment, he looked at me as if debating whether to say something else. Finally, he spoke. "I hope you find peace too, Anna. You need to let go of the past." "I have." And just like that, he turned and walked away, leaving me sitting there with tears streaming down my face. I watched him go, knowing that this would be the last time I would ever see him. He had moved on, found happiness, and left the pain of our past behind. As I sat there in the empty coffee shop, I realized it was time for me to do the same. Luke had forgiven me, but now I needed to forgive myself. Only then could I truly move forward and start over.